We're coming to you live from the Hyman Studios. So welcome to the only Hawg.
It's part of the Bleeze
Radio Network.
You can hear us
on all
platforms as well as
the
106.7 Central Arkansas. Please like and review our podcast. You live as always. Mulberry, Arkansas. I'm your host, Porter Hayes, Arkansas. Alongside me is Jacob Arkansas Fight, and Saturday Down South. We're brought to you by
Online.
So Bet Online, all your easiest way, all your favorite sports
against
first to market
all.
Find reviews
for every league,
baseball,
NFL,
combat sports,
esports, and
Bet Online
with us.
We're just going to get started. We do apologize.
For
the technical difficulty. I don't know what's going on. Sound, but Jacob, we had a pretty busy week with media days,
and
football is near. So I guess we'll just keep. And what was your take for media days? Talking season as you say, looking forward to the season.
Yeah, so man, it's really getting here fast. We're 38 days away from football season. I think we're 29 days from any kind of regular season football. Anyway, so man, it's getting here fast. As far as media days go, there was so much going on. Obviously, you had the back and forth. You thought you were going to get the back and forth between Jimbo and Nick being in the same building and stuff. Obviously, it didn't get to happen. But yeah, Sam Pittman being able to hear him, and share some confidence about this team, about this football program. You'll see in some of my articles coming up over the next couple of weeks about how confident he is in the wide receivers, how confident he is in the defensive line. It's going to be something fun to watch as we go into fall camp and seeing what kind of battles Arkansas has going when it goes to the positions of wide receiver and defensive line, seeing how the transfers square up with the guys that are returning, and kind of seeing what you can do on the wide receiver room after losing Treylon Burks last year.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions when it comes to
offensive stuff.
Without that threat, you don't know.
Without that threat, you don't know.
Beating the dead horse when it comes to the wide receiver.
Beating the dead horse when it comes to the wide receiver.
You know you have the running back position.
You have running back position.
I'm really looking forward to seeing. Receiver steps up.
Receiver
will not step up. Hazelwood step up. Know who's going to step up in that position.
The
hardest schedule in college. And that's why I've always been. Hesitant on going above that. Later when we talk about the keys too. And we'll go through our comeback. I see 9. At least these first couple of games.
Cincinnati.
South Carolina's rebuilding. If this was next year's maybe. Just with that Cincinnati team, they're a stout defense. When they had a showing like they did against Alabama. It's hard to say that there'll be a threat when it comes to playing Arkansas. But know how that's going to be. But I think they're going to fare well. I think they're going to fare well.
And it's not like Cincinnati was terrible against Alabama. thing was they just couldn't stop the run game.
Yeah, that's true.
And Arkansas is known for their run game too.
True.
So I mean, I think Brian Robinson ran for like 200-something yards and 3 touchdowns last year, and they're losing like 6 guys on the defensive side of the football for Cincinnati. Man, Arkansas could, they could run the ball and run the score up if they wanted to against Cincinnati if they didn't reload. Because I don't really know what Cincinnati has outside of some of the returning starters on the defensive line and linebacker and what they added through the portal and some of the freshmen they have coming in. But, I mean, it's highly likely that Cincinnati doesn't have the horses like they would in the SEC on any given weekend,
Yeah, and I think the good thing is the fans might be overlooked. I don't think the team is. I mean, this is week one.
Yeah.
I mean, this is week one. You got SEC Network.
Huge.
Yep.
It's going to be a huge.
And they're going to be looking forward to the task.
And they're going to be looking forward to the task. Cincinnati's going to be coming here wanting to send a message.
Wasn't fluke.
And
they're going to be looking to send a message to beat.
And they're going to be looking to send a message to beat the SEC out of the gate.
Yeah, and it's going to be rough to see it. I mean, it's like what Jerry says here. The D-line won't be able to match the Hogs O-line. I'll show that. Yeah, the Hogs offensive line, they're going to have their way with Cincinnati, I believe. They'll be able to block. I mean, in Arkansas, Dominique Johnson, he may be able to get in the second level of the defense in a hurry. And you saw that early, throughout the season last year against regular SEC defenses. If he was able to get an opening, the guy that's 240 pounds, he's able to get to the second level of the defense, he can get you some 20, 25 yards. And you already know how dangerous Rocket Sanders is. And then you add A.J. Green to the equation, too, a guy that had a pretty good season early on last year, and then you have Rashad Devinian, who could be the fastest guy coming out of the state of Georgia as a true freshman. Does he get the playing time too? So obviously, Arkansas's got their offensive line. They're the biggest. They're wanting to be touted as the biggest offensive line again in all of football, like they were under Sam Pittman the first time. Whether they are or not this season is yet to be seen. But will they be? That's the first thing. I think it will be. And second of all, are they going to be able to run the football in Cincinnati? I'll say yes. But that's 30 odd days away. We haven't been through fall camp yet. Injuries could come into effect. We knock on some wood here. I got some good cedar wood table right here, so I'll knock on it. but hopefully we come clean and not have any devastating injuries going in.
Yeah, well, and another thing is we don't know how they're going to use. Blake Horn's offense. That's another threat that we don't know.
Yeah,
that's another threat that we don't know what they're going to do.
Absolutely, because you don't really know. I was talking to my buddy Ryan at work the other day. He's an avid watcher of the show, and we were talking about what are the best ways to utilize Malik Hornsby. Saying we're at the water cooler, we got our little pen and pad, and we're drawing some stuff up. Maybe some jet sweeps, getting him, maybe split him out wide, get some jet sweeps going, use him in the slot. But him being a quarterback, he's not a natural wide receiver. How's his hands? How does he look there? Because we obviously all we saw in the spring was the spring game that was open to fans and media and the national television on ESPN3. So you really don't know what you're getting out of Malik Hornsby. You know he's talented. You know he has speed. Does he sneak around the end for a touchdown and an 80-yard run? To start the game off. Yeah, there's some magical things and things you can think of as far as what Malik Hornsby can do in week one. But yeah, that is a huge thought there, Porter. And I think that he's a big question mark on this offense because nobody knows what he can do.
I think he's going to be like Randall Carr. We look at what he did at Kentucky, and then he went to the NFL and was the Packers. He just has that type of talent. Of course, you don't want him, do anything. The dual threat, but
right.
You're saving him kind of to another team as well. He was on the verge of going to in the portal. But I'm glad they talked you back. I think it's going to be a huge asset because it's going to, we need to open on the running, keep that running game going. Any way you can, Kim, Sanders, Dominique, anybody. And then we forget about AJ and his running ability. This is going to be a run heavy. But they're going to have to rely on the win.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A lot of games.
Yeah, and the passing game, I'm not really too afraid of right now because I think Arkansas they have a capable quarterback. They've got the wide receiver room, and they're pretty good. Now I'll say that they got Jaden Hazelwood coming from Oklahoma. They've got the Hornsby guy. They've got Warren Thompson. You've got Isaiah Satania. You've got weapons throughout the wide receiver room, and it's like Sam Pittman said at SEC Media Days, we've got the guys. They just got to go out there and catch the football. They've got to go out there and do their job. And if they do their job correctly, you're not going to miss a Treylon Burks. Yeah, you're going to miss his production. You're going to miss what his leadership and the home run ability of him. Yeah, you're going to miss that. But if you have a bunch of wide receivers that can kind of mend together and be one and one unit and be unified, I think the sky's the limit for that position group at receiver. Honestly, that's just what I think.
Well, and I was thinking about last year. Kendall Browns was just trying to insert his offense and get everybody first year.
Yeah,
you had a guy like Burks roped in the flag, and opens him do the work. Perfect for his first year. In the second, you get more of your play, get more confidence in your quarterback. Maybe that's going to be now. He's going to open more, or you can utilize Knox. I think that's going to be a huge. He's going to have to come up huge. And then that deep threat. You got to have the guy that wins around. I wish they would really what happens, how they run their practice. Because in the white game, whatever they call it, you're not seeing the vanilla off, and you won't really see what they got in Cincinnati. So we can get up here and speculate all to do, just. I don't know. I wish we could see what's going on before we can make stuff going on.
Yeah, and you got to think about it too. You have Trey Knox there, and you have a Hudson Henry who has all the talent in the world to be a successful tight end at the University of Arkansas, and then you've got that. Oh yeah, the kid that came from Toledo that transferred in, who was averaging 25 yards a catch last year in the MACtion. Oh man, I am going. I'm forgetting his name. Is Landers? Matt Landers. He's coming in. He's like a 6'5", 220-pound wide receiver too. I mean, he has game-breaking speed. So obviously, there's a lot of weapons out there, and you're talking about opening up the playbook. And we go back to the Outback Bowl because that's the last thing that we remember as far as last season goes. And you only passed for 98 yards, and you ran for over 300, and yeah, you got away with it against Penn State because Penn State was missing a few of their game-breaking wide receiver and a couple of the defenders. The game was totally different, and so the game was called different under Kendall Browse too, obviously. So you've got KJ again for a second year as your starting quarterback. I think you're going to see more of a balanced attack this season, maybe more like 50, maybe 60-40 rushing, throwing. Which is up a little bit from last year. But I think you may see KJ have a couple more games like you saw him have against Ole Miss, or you saw him make huge plays like he did against LSU late in the game. And then you had the confidence game that he had against Alabama last year. He's not a bad quarterback without Treylon Burks. Yeah, Treylon Burks was a huge superstar, but I still think KJ has an opportunity here to grow up, to boost his draft stock, even if he leaves after next year. And, if he does have a good season, maybe being able to have people look at him differently and say, oh, he is more than just Treylon.
Yeah, and that's going to be him having that extra confidence, like we said about getting your throws and percentage up, and I think that be the thing that we're going to have to work on the most.
He's
to be able to throw and really who's going to be that one? And that's really going to be where you're really going to most confidence of having a wide receiver that you can get you that first down.
Yeah, and Burks, you could lean on Burks easily last year because you knew the guy was going to catch your passes, whether it was in the flat, whether it was over the middle, whether it was deep or intermediate passes. You had him as maybe like a blanket, a safety blanket, maybe. I think he was somebody you could feel confident in to get you those tough yards too. So it's going to be something to watch throughout the fall and see how this offense develops as far as the receivers. Because you know the offensive line's there, you know what you got at quarterback, and you know what you have at running back. The receivers is the question mark. I don't think I have the confidence of what Sam said in media days. Because when Sam tells you something, you better believe it. And I have confidence in Sam saying, I like our wide receiver room. I like what we have, and I'll put stock into that. I think it's true.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know. It's crazy to see. It's crazy to see the growth. When Sam got up at SEC Media Days and was talking. You're not playing for the University of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Everybody want to run through a brick wall. And
yeah.
I felt the same. And that's what he did. He didn't just make. You got to come up and try to. Make something happen like the Vandy coach said that we're going to be the best program. In the nation. He come up and everybody is respected Sam Pittman. And they know that
don't want to play Arkansas.
It's not that they fear them. When they play a team like Arkansas,
we're going to be in for a
dogfight.
And who wants to?
In the SEC, who wants to play a team
that used to be a bottom feeder?
Now
they got a coach.
That they believe.
They got a coach.
Right.
They got a coach that
they're going to make their players better. They don't want that.
Right. And I loved what the Jordan Rogers and the Takeo Spikes of the SEC network were just in love with everything that Sam says, because you can have confidence in him. And you see Nolan Smith in that popular video of him walking down the hallway of the College Football Hall of Fame, and he comes across Sam Pittman and he comes and gives him a hug. Like these players, past and present, the players that don't even know him. Sam Pittman has this impact. He's a larger-than-life figure, and it has these people that want to go out there and run through a brick wall. I would do anything for the man. I mean, I would run at 110 all week long. And I love, he wants to be there for his kids. He runs through the A every single week with his kids. Chad Morris didn't do that. Brett Bielema didn't do that. Sam is the one leading his guys at every single place on the field, whether and off the field, throughout workouts. He is the leader of this team. The unquestioned leader of this program is Sam Pittman. And you have the valuable staff with Barry Odom and Kendall Browse and the remaining assistants. Like, there's just so much to like about this team, Porter. And there's no reason not to feel confident, I don't think, in this team going into 2022.
You were talking about past players that played against him. I think they're relieved that they can actually watch their team play and not be embarrassed.
Yeah.
They can actually go to a game. They beat us. You're not getting beat by Western. You're not getting routed. Embarrassed by North Texas. The punt. You're not looking up in the stands. There's 20,000 fans. They're leaving. I think that's what it has to do. They're coming back. So glad. I think
the same way.
That's why Razorback Nation is strong now because they're so thankful
for the basketball
program is. Baseball program. they could sit there
and
relax, knowing
if we get beat,
you're not getting
involved.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what. Other than the Georgia game last year,
winning a national game.
I'd rather get
beat
Georgia, where they just
outmatched
you.
Wanted it more, and you got
cold-cocked and humble. It's that happening to a West where you bench your quarterback, and that quarterback in your own stadium. That's where it goes to the embarrassment. You got beat, but gain respect for this.
Yeah. And that's that going back to that point where, they did go and get shut out against Georgia last season. They didn't just close the book and just go on the rest of the season ho-hum. They went out there and fought. They continued to fight for their coach. And Sam Pittman said that, he may have had his guys overhyped to go into that game against Georgia last season. And he may have put too much focus on that game. You go in against Ole Miss and you lose by 1, and you miss a 2-point conversion there at the end of the game, and against Ole Miss on the road. You come back home against Auburn and you lose that one too by 14, and that's a heartbreaker, and you hate it because you've lost 6 straight games to the Auburn Tigers, which in this point of this rivalry that shouldn't be happening because both teams are about on the same level. And then you go and you finally you stop the bleeding against UAPB, and you continue to get better each week, and you almost upset Alabama. And that team, and I realized it was a different team, and I should have realized it back in 2020 when the Razorbacks were playing a heck of great ball as a 3-7 team in a COVID-shortened year. I should have thought about it then, that this team was different. But this team is very different now because when they would have folded up like a lawn chair under Chad Morris after getting embarrassed 37-0 against Georgia, they come back under Sam Pittman and they continue to get better and better and better each week. And that was what was impressive to me last season among anything, was the improvements that they made each week and not folding up.
The biggest thing that I did seeing was that was where they actually went into halftime. They didn't go into halftime and not make any adjustments and just accept defeat. These teams.
These teams. And
the Georgia game, like I said, that was the game. Auburn game, Bo Nix played the game of his life. You just talk Auburn.
Yeah.
You just talk Auburn. They played. Other than the Alabama game, where they played to the end and stupid 2-point conversion, overtime. I think that's the dumbest way to end the game. In any level of any sport.
Yeah.
In any level of any sport.
Just how those, and that's going to be. I guess we go ahead and go. We'll kind of touch on it, and then we'll go to our fans. The Georgia game and the Auburn game. Of course, you've got to cut those games out. You got to you let teams just get you. If you're going to get the 10 wins, you cannot have games like quarterbacks just picking you apart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that was one of the things. Let's get over to the live fan feedback, and I'll pull up that post you had on Facebook this morning, and we'll look at some of the questions that these guys had. As far as what was it like? Questions going into the season. Give me just a second. I'm gonna have that pulled up.
We got a couple minutes before we hit the commercial break. Let's answer this question by Jerry Howard.
Okay.
And then we'll go into that. How big do you think it is for the Sissy game? Game one. Hopefully injuries and being more they won't be an issue. You think that's an advantage outweighs having to rely on such a big game one match. It's a big game. That Cincinnati played in playoffs last year. That's just one right there. It's like a bragging right. Cincy can come in and you can win that game. It's because you can say that you beat a team come off college football bid. Do I think it's an advantage? Of course. I mean, you're playing with your opponent. not playing an SEC game one. So even if you lose this one, it kind of technically takes you out of the running of the college football. But it does not affect the standings. It doesn't affect your confidence. Another thing. I think in advantage of playing a game like this, you're not playing a nickel. You're not playing a soft opponent. You're getting yourself one. You're proving to your team faith in you that we can still have a schedule in America. And we can go out week one. I have faith in you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think another thing that Porter didn't say is, remember the Texas game last year? We came out of the Rice game and went into the Texas game, and we were pretty much injury-free going into Texas. Yep. And you go out there and you stomp them in the ground 40-21, which that game wasn't even that close. It really wasn't. Texas scored two scores in the back the end of the second half. Like, that game was more like a 40-7 game than it was anything. You're going to have Arkansas at full speed, completely healthy. Arkansas could put up some numbers. Like we said at the early part of the game, or early part of the podcast here, that Arkansas could run. They may not even have to throw a pass for the first couple of drives because they can lean on their run game. And even if they lean on the run game, you can spread out the field passing wise now because not everybody's going to be just paying attention to Traylon Burks. The field opens up a little bit maybe now that you just really don't know where the firepower is going to come from. So yeah, as far as the advantage goes, I think it's us. I think that it definitely we can rely on our starters. For such a big game, I think Arkansas can do some damage and make a statement week one, and then going into week two, it's all hands on deck from there on out.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a big game too because South Carolina's no proof point. They have an axe to grind. No proof point.
Yeah, everybody's doubting them.
Let's put your rattler.
Everybody's doubting no Spencer because he goes and loses his starting job at Oklahoma to Caleb Williams, and he transfers into South Carolina. Like, if you can't get it done and under Lincoln Riley and win games at Oklahoma going 11-2, and why are you getting forecast as a dark horse Heisman candidate when you got benched at Oklahoma? Like, he has a chip on his shoulder there too.
It's hype and
he has a big chip on his shoulder.
It's hype and talent. He does have a chip on his shoulder. But, he does have a chip on his shoulder. But, he had a lot of things. He did job taken from him, but he did down the way he needed.
Yeah.
You can have all the talent in the world, and I have all the talent in the world, because I want to see how he reacts. Fresh start. Seeing if he can perform. Because let's be real, other than Georgia, the SEC East is like the Big 12. We're going to see, Arkansas game 2. We're going to see, Arkansas game 2 is going to be a big difference for him. He's going to be going up against stout defense.
Arkansas knows what they have.
Stout defense.
Yeah. And that's the thing, though, thinking about week 2, is Arkansas knows what they have. What does South Carolina know that they have? Because it's almost a relatively whole new offense and pretty much the same stuff on defense. Obviously, you have Beamer coming over from Oklahoma. That he knows the Oklahoma offensive philosophy. So maybe it does help Rattler and his buddies from Oklahoma. Be more ready going into week 1 and week 2 and getting into SEC play. Maybe I'm overlooking and maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know.
Well, and again, like I said, this is SEC. And South Carolina's going to come into this game. There's a lot of hype. They've been doing a lot of yapping on social media.
Oh, yeah.
they've been doing their little videos and stuff.
They've been doing their little videos and stuff. And he was trying to be that guy that tone of, trying to be that guy that ridiculous. Which there's nothing wrong with.
No.
What the team
to connect to players. And he is winning social media just like
he is winning social media just like must win.
Well, let's see how that transitions on the field.
Well, let's see how that transitions on the field.
Those first 2 games, I'm telling you what.
Those first 2 games, I'm telling you what. We talk about the
first 2 games in Cincinnati, and then you get that SEC win.
In Cincinnati, and then you get that SEC win.
SEC Network's their week 1. They're going to
Network's their week 1. They're going to read what
Cam can do. There was a lot of hype when it came to the Texas
there was a lot of hype.
A lot of momentum. That was their Super Bowl. That was their
momentum. That was their Super Bowl. That was their.
They really wanted that Texas game. That meant something because the rivalry.
They really wanted that Texas game. That meant something because of the rivalry.
Right.
Totally different scenario this year against a team like Cincinnati.
All you got was bragging saying.
All you got was bragging saying they were in the playoffs.
Let's see how they handled that.
Exactly right.
Let's see how they handled that.
And get into that type of game. It's going to be a totally different
type of game. It's going to be a
totally different. I don't think you're going to have the fan turnout.
I don't think you're going to have the fan turnout for this Cincinnati game.
You're not going to have that.
That you did the Texas game. You're not going to have that electric excitement like we did last year.
Yeah, and I think as far as excitement goes, you beat Cincinnati and you beat South Carolina. I think you beat Cincinnati, and you're thinking, okay, the people in the national stage are seeing Arkansas in a different light. Go out there and beat South Carolina, and then you beat Texas A&M for a second straight year. Things start to look different. Things start to look really good at Arkansas again for the second straight year, and then you got Alabama, and you got it at home. This home schedule is growing. This is a good home schedule. As good of a home schedule as you're going to get. If Arkansas is 4-0, man, I can't even imagine it going into Alabama. That place is going to be nuts.
Well, think about this for a second.
Think about this for a second. They're talking about the 3-game.
When was the last time you really had trouble?
When was the last time you really had trouble thinking about which 3 games
you want to go to because all of them are good?
Because all of them are good.
Yeah, the 2016 season, they had some pretty good games, and I remember like the LSU game, the Ole Miss game. You had Alabama, but you look at it and you think back. There really wasn't any good marquee matchups as far as home games because you had TCU at TCU, and then you had Texas State, and you had your regulars like FCS school to start the year. Like 2016 was a pretty good slate, but I've never seen a slate like this in Fayetteville because you're not playing a game. Except what?
How good the team.
Yeah.
How good the team. That makes a huge position.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But we're up against the
break.
We'll get into
the biggest
if Arkansas
would get it wins. What would be?
Catch you after the break.
Sure.
Five, one,
two.
And we want to welcome to the Hawg Live. And we'll get into question is Jacob, if Arkansas get 10 wins, what's the biggest to them getting that?
So my biggest key as far as getting to 10 wins, I would say the defensive line. because you don't know what you have. And I talked about it earlier. You really don't know what you have. But you have some really good defenders that are coming in, like Jordan Dominic from Georgia Tech. You've got Landon Jackson from LSU, a guy that was really highly regarded coming out of Prairie Grove, Texarkana, Texas High School. Really good. But you also have your Zach Williams that returns. You have your Eric Gregory. You have Jashad Stewart. A couple of guys that are a couple from Arkansas and one guy right over to the state line in Memphis. And Eric Thomas. And I'm trying to remember, there's some other guys. Dotorian Carter, who could be coming back. He had a knee injury during spring practice. If Arkansas can find a pass rush and be able to keep teams from being able to gash them in the run, which I don't think they're going to be gashing the run as much or as bad as a lot of people think they will. I think if they can stop the run and find a pass rush, they'll be able to win 10 games this season.
I alluded to it before we, went to break. Don't let these quarterbacks carve you up. You can't let a Bo Nix carve you up. There's a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of quarterbacks with
Rodgers and Young.
You
have Rattler. All these quarterbacks.
They're hungry.
We don't know how good they are.
We don't know how good they are.
Quarterbacks really are. There's a lot of hype surrounding them.
There's a lot of hype surrounding them, but there's also a lot of
there's a lot of these quarterbacks that have a chip on their shoulder.
There's a lot of these quarterbacks that have a chip on their shoulder.
You have a lot of talent on defense. I think you have more talent
on defense. I think you have more talent overall on defense.
And then you got Bruce.
And then you got Bruce.
McLaughlin. What was his name from LSU?
What was his name from
LSU? Yeah, Dwight McLaughlin. Virginia. Wait, Georgia Tech is Dominic. Yeah.
Well, you got the guy from Georgia.
Oh,
Latavius Brini. Yes.
Yeah, him.
Latavius Brini.
And then
you've got a lot of guys coming in. That's
going to need treatment.
This is the biggest when it comes to.
This is the biggest when it comes to.
This is the biggest. He's
portal.
The best job he's ever done when it comes to getting a lot of players buy in and see what happens.
Your defense buy in and see what happens.
But I'm going to go to the other side of the ball.
I think the biggest
to be balanced. KJ is going to have to prove that he is the
legit.
He is a good quarterback, but I think he is a good quarterback. I think getting stepped off the all-SEC list because a good running quarterback, but he hasn't really proven what he can do with his arm.
He can
just throw the ball to him.
He goes out in open space and gets touchdowns or 50-50.
So I think that's the biggest concern. Is he going to be more efficient? Can he throw the long ball? And I think they're going to have to score 30-35 points a game
to that 10-point season.
I can see that. I can see that. Let's see some of the comments here. We had Devin Talley said the defensive line overperforming. And I think that goes into my take there with the defensive line being the key to 10 wins because you're going to have the sacks. Arkansas had 26 sacks last season, which was pretty good. I mean, it's better than what they had been doing. Like under Morris, I think they had 20 or 18 the first year and 21 the second year. I don't recall how many they had, but I think it was about the same amount this past season as it was in their first season under Barry Odom. So they're going to have to do better at pass rushing and but I think as far as the run game goes on run defense, you're going to have to find your replacements for like Markel Utze and John Ridgway because John Ridgway was a man. He was a mammoth there at defensive tackle. He could take on one. He could take on two men at one time and make a difference on the rush defense. So I really think that you cannot overstate about how big a defensive line improvement will be for this team if they want to make it to 10 wins.
And another thing, I remember who said this, so I can't give credit because I can't remember. The third down.
Do not have
third down conversions. Cannot let them get the third. You can't let them third nine.
It's going to be a big key. They love a third down.
So it's just that's going to be a big key.
That's going to be a big key. Because that's the defense got
tired a lot. It just seemed like Nick was those guys apart on third down. You know what that does?
Mentally.
More than it does.
physically. Oh yeah.
Get this stop.
We're going to punt. We get the
ball.
Right.
I think that's going to be a big.
Yeah. Mark Sullivan, he says the offensive line will have to step up and hold on so KJ can get a pass off. They need to play tighter on defense. I don't think it'll be an issue this year to get to 10 wins. Pittman has his team looking good. Just build off what an amazing season last year and make it even better. So he's saying O-line. I don't think O-line is as big as a question mark as a lot of people say, because you have a guy like Tykeist Crawford, who is a big-time offensive line prospect. He initially committed to Arkansas coming out of high school, but he's a guy that went to Charlotte. I don't know why. But obviously he had some things right, and after his freshman year, he came back. He was a pretty highly rated offensive lineman on PFF college football during the 2020 season. Transfers to Arkansas. He rides the pine because maybe he's just not ready. They develop him. He's 6'5", 320-something, maybe 330-something pounds, and just a beast. He's probably going to be your left tackle. And I think, early on you're going to have to figure some things out because you're losing your left tackle. But the rest of the offensive line, I think, is stout, and I think they've all started games at some point in their Razorback careers since Sam Pittman's been there. So I don't think it's a big question mark. But, yeah, I do agree with him. Like, you do have to have an O-line because at some points, KJ, as good as he is as a runner and being able to gain yards running the football, he has to be able to have time to pass. And there were some points last year that defensive linemen were being able to beat our offensive linemen off the snap. So maybe we'll see some improvement there this season.
Yeah, when you're supposed to run heavy team, you're relying on KJ with running. You got all the talent. You're going to need to.
Yeah.
Offensive line to step. That's a given. I think the way Pittman has got his line, the biggest line, like back when or not Pittman, but Bielema. They were bragging about how line was raking them like it's in the fourth. And now they're starting to do. I think that's good. But I don't think that's the key. But I don't think that's plus because of course it's a run heavy team. When you're a run heavy team, I think there's bigger things when it comes to what this team needs to do. And again, you're playing in the SEC.
Yeah. Let's see here. Hayes and Toby. He says, protect this house. Got to take care of your home games this year, and you have a chance. Arkansas, they have 7 home games. We mentioned that earlier in the show. Arkansas wins. Say Arkansas goes 6-1. They lose to Alabama. You've got 4 games there outside of Fayetteville to go win. You've got A&M. You've got BYU. You've got Mississippi State, and you've got Missouri to close out the season. Am I missing one game? I'm thinking I'm missing. Oh, you have Missouri State. So, wait, no, Missouri State's at home. Gosh, dog it. I got to have these schedules in front of me. But anyways, you have road games there to get to 7. Say you go 6-1 in Fayetteville. Do you beat Mississippi State? Do you beat BYU? And do you beat Mizzou?
Yes. If you would give me a toss-up, in his quarterback.
In Auburn.
In his quarterback.
Yeah, well, I'm not sold on Auburn, though.
I'm not sold on Auburn, though, because they got Calzada and he's been a terrible performance last year. So, it's A&M. So,
Auburn's always that team that...
I don't know. Auburn's always that team that...
But they always have your
number. You have better talent, but they always have your number. 6-7 in a row.
It's almost like one of the things...
It's almost like one of the things,
I think they could beat them. But think they could put money on it, if I was to put money on it, I'd have to see them actually put money on Arkansas.
Yeah. So you go and you got to play Mississippi State the week after Alabama. Say you win that game. Say you win that game against Alabama, and you go on the road against Mississippi State, or vice versa. You lose Alabama and you're beaten up. Can you go and beat Mississippi State on the road? Do you find yourself composed enough? And history has shown us back in '98 when Arkansas was undefeated coming out of they were 8-0 going into the Tennessee game in 1998. They were on the road in Tennessee and ended up losing. And then they had a hangover after that week, and they go into Mississippi State and they lose the second straight game of the season after starting 8-0. So history has a way of repeating itself, but I don't think this team is going to be focused. I think they end up being able to go and maybe winning a couple, stringing some together, even if they lose to Alabama. Because you've got BYU the very next week after Mississippi State. It's a crazy road trip, Porter. And the BYU, you're 4,500 feet above sea level, so the air is already thin, and I think that's an overused issue when it comes to playing football in the mountains. I mean, it's how used. If you are an athlete and can't handle the air in Colorado or Utah or whatever, wherever you're playing, you have issues. if you are a very, very conditioned athlete.
And the point about Alabama would be when it comes to the Mississippi State game, I would be more concerned. Beat Alabama, and then regroup for huge win that game forever. And then going to Mississippi State opposed to how they responded. We know that they can lose to a game like Georgia, still have a 9-3 season.
Yeah.
But that would be my biggest beat Bama. It would be times 10 compared to the Texas game. Trying to bounce and then do it again. Then beat
yeah. Because you've beaten the Texas in recent history. You've beaten 5 out of the last 7 times you played them. You haven't beat Alabama in 16 years. It's been a long time. And Arkansas, I think, and I know I'm chasing the rabbit here, but it's been a long time. And I agree with you, Porter. It's going to be hard to reel the emotions back in. And I mean, I don't know, but Sam Pittman, he may not be right after beating Alabama, after such a big win. That could be the biggest win of his career. How would he bounce back after a victory like that going into Mississippi State on the road? So, protecting this house, you can take care of business and make 10 wins very likely. I like that statement there by Mr. Hazen. And I think that was it because the other guy was talking about the offensive line as well. Let me see and make sure there's not any more comments here. Keeping everyone healthy and the defense as a whole from James Lloyd. We've talked about that enough. We didn't talk about Drew Sanders and Bumper Pool and their what they could do at linebacker. They could have 125 tackles each. Bumper Pool could break records. He could break the all-time record for tackles in the Alabama game. Yeah. So there is that is a huge, like, the defense as a whole. Arkansas hasn't had a good defense, a very, very good defense since 2014. Last year's was good; they were solid, but the 2014 team was very good. Yeah, Can they have a defense that looks like that?
They remember. And it goes back to the Georgia game, Ole Miss game.
Yeah.
You had it good. When you get in these 50 points, and you're down 21, you can even blink. You let Bo Nix have a I'm ready to see this. They need a pass rush. They need somebody. They don't need somebody to do it. If you let any of these quarterbacks sit back, 7 step drop, and
and just be like 7 on 7,
we're going to have trouble. Getting
the 10 wins.
Yeah. And I think, lastly, obviously, the biggest issue to get to 10 wins is keeping your guys healthy.
Yeah.
And you can look around, and I think, okay, if you drop a receiver here, or if you drop a defender there, okay, you lose a Catalan again this year. Heaven forbid that happens. But if you lose a KJ Jefferson at quarterback, that will be a devastating loss to a Razorback team that is looking to get to the college football playoff. Arkansas has to avoid injuries. Absolutely, Mr. Dennis. I agree with you. If they can stay healthy, Arkansas can get to 10 wins because I don't think their depth is at the spot yet. They're a whole lot better than they were just 2 seasons ago. But their depth is not to the spot yet at this point in the Pittman tenure that they can lose a big-time starter and continue rolling throughout the season.
Yeah, because if I'm looking at the schedule, you do not have a bye until in between
BYU and Auburn.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 games.
7 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would a very key and get to those 10 wins because let's look at those games again. You've got Alabama,
Mississippi State, BYU,
and Texas A&M. Those final 4 games. Because you got South Carolina, Missouri. Then you go Alabama, State, BYU, and then you get a bye.
Yeah.
To be honest,
that can
be one of the top ones.
Of staying healthy. It's going through that gauntlet.
And then you got Auburn,
LSU, Missouri.
Yeah. It's the back end of the schedule is a lot more manageable. But man, it's going to be heck to get there. Yeah. It's going to be hard.
Well, you're depth this year. That's
going to be the thing.
Yeah.
You got more talent, more depth.
Yeah.
You have linebackers
trying to play safety. You don't have safeties playing defensive end.
Know where your guys.
You got your coordinators. Another year in with Odom,
Riles, everybody yelling.
So
I'm looking forward to the season. Again, we're getting closer to the season. But every podcast
we closer to Razorback football.
Yeah. It's getting really close, man, and the excitement's brewing. And you can go around the state and you can talk. And I work in the public all day long, and the first thing people say to me is, "Man, I can't wait to see those Hogs. I can't wait to see them. What do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do?" And I'm thinking, man, if I tell you, you're going to get mad at me because I'm saying 11 wins is possible. And obviously, my father-in-law, who listens to the podcast as well, he's like, if you say they're going to win 11 games again, you are you tend to overpromise and underdeliver. And he's a huge fan. He says overpromise but underdeliver. And I'm like, you're just gonna have to stop taking so much stock into my stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be fun leading up to the season. It's talking season. It's speculating season, and it's gonna be cool to see what happens going forward. And I'm ready to see what fall practice brings to us.
Yeah, and before we go, we're going to announce one of our new sponsors. We got Diamond State Power Washing. And they're in Central Arkansas.
Yeah, they're located down in Sheridan, here in Grant County. They're a good group of guys. He's done a lot of work for me and my family over the years, and he also has a detail service too. A shop at Sheridan. It's on Rock Street. I'll get you an address and stuff. And if you ever need to go to him, you can find him on Facebook. Diamond State Power Washing and 2 Clean Car Detailing. They do really tremendous work, and I can't say any more about them. They're great guys there too.
Yeah, and we
want to thank the rest of our sponsors. Always, Grind Right Stump Grinding.
Corey Hyman,
he's
one of the number one electrical plumbing
guys in Arkansas.
Any plumbing,
electrical.
Hit up my guy
Corey Hyman.
Shelby Taylor
Trucking.
Of course,
McCoy Tiger Pharmacy.
And our newest
one also Camelot Exteriors
out of Norman,
Oklahoma.
And we want to
appreciate fans who tuned in.
The sound was
off. I know
people
were saying they're getting some feedback. So we do apologize for those
technical difficulties.
I guess that's one of the things about doing a live show. You just gotta
roll with the punches,
wing it,
and do the best we can.
So, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Give us a like on Facebook and give us a follow on Twitter and give us a good rating and a 5-star. Even though you didn't get a 5-star show tonight, maybe they'll do the sound, but you got a 5-star staff here, so give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts too, guys. Really appreciate y'all, and hope y'all have a good night. Let's go Hogs.
We'll do better next week.